Hello friends, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Pin Stack Smashing. I'm your favorite YouTube lockpicker, Master Yale Quickset. And to begin this video, I'd like to revisit the lock from the previous video, the Master Model 141D. As it turns out, this lock suffers from yet another vulnerability. This means that we now have a fourth method to which we could defeat the security of this lock just by manipulating the pins in the plug. This vulnerability has everything to do with the pin columns. Now, the pin columns inside of this lock that host the key pins, the driver pins, and the springs are too long. And what that means is that we can push the pins and the springs all the way up into the column past the shear line. Once we do that, we put a little bit of torque on the plug and the shackle will pop open, and thus we defeat the security of the lock. Now, also to do so, we have to push all of the pins and the springs up past the shear line simultaneously. So the tool that which we're going to be using to do so is called a comb. This is a comb. Unfortunately, this comb is built into a tension wrench. But this comb will be used to push all of the pins up past the shear line simultaneously. And once we do so, we just simply put a little bit of torque onto the plug, and you will see that the lock will pop open. So what do you say we put this comb to the test? All I have to do is insert the comb into the keyway, line it over the pins, press all the way so that the tool goes all the way to the top of the keyway, as so, thus forcing all of the pins past the shear line, give it a little bit of torque and the lock pops open. So let's now turn our attention to the featured lock of the episode, the BRINKS Discus lock. This BRINKS Discus lock does not actually have a model number. I'm not sure why, but this must be one of the very first versions. Usually on the newer versions, you'll see a model number down here like R70 or R80, or maybe those are just complete different models altogether. This one just simply advertises that the case is made out of stainless steel, as if that whimsically is going to stop us from defeating the security of this lock. It says BRINKS on the side. The shackle is advertised as hardened steel on the top. The back side just says stainless steel, and it just says China also. It doesn't even say made in China, it just says China. This particular tumbler in this plug actually has 4 pins in it. But the first thing I want to do is give this a little bit of lube here, because this lock has been used a lot.
It rubs the lube on its pins, or else it gets the rake again. Yes, precious, it gets the rake again.
This way we just ensure that any gunk or anything built up on the pins themselves aren't going to inhibit our picking attempts. This way we have shaken out all of the excess graphite, and you can see that there's a lot of dirt inside of there and a lot of buildup. That's probably from me picking the lock constantly. I only purchased this lock just for the purpose of picking and testing. So I'm going to go wash my hands quickly and I'll be right back. We're going to begin by trying to rake the lock. Make sure that it's locked here. I'm going to be using this small tension wrench that I made out of a windshield wiper blade, and I'm going to put it in the top of the keyhole. And I'm going to be using this Peterson rake right here, and I'm simply just going to try to rake these pins, see if we can't get them to set. A raking technique usually happens really fast, so if you can't get it right away, I would just recommend stop doing it. The next attack we're going to try is a rocking attack. So I'm going to be using a pry bar in the top of the keyway. This is a thick pry bar. And to rock, I'm going to use another Peterson pick. I'm going to be using the standard hook pick. I believe this is hook number 1. I'm going to be putting this pick in here upside down so that the keys will be touching the back of the hook. And then I'm simply just going to try to rock the pins here, while adjusting variable tension on the plug. This is another attack that usually happens really fast, so if you don't get it right away, I would recommend just not trying it. The next thing we're going to do is single pin picking. So I'm going to try to reset the pins first. Make sure that nothing is jammed up, there's no false sets or anything. sure it is locked. Going to be sticking a pry bar again into the top of the keyway here, applying pressure awkwardly. Go right for pin 1. Little click on pin 1, pin 2. Big click on pin 2, no plug rotation. Pin 3. Big click on pin 3 and no plug rotation. And 4. Four feels like it wants to give, but it's not. I'm going to go back to 1. Click on 1, and we've picked the lock open. Let's try that again. Again, I'm going to reset these pins here. Make sure they're not jammed up. Going to be using a top of the keyway pry bar again. It's very awkward. I kind of wish that I had the bending this way. Pry bar. Okay, so I'm going to go for pin 1. Little click on pin 1, pin 2, click on pin 2, big click on pin 3, and we got plug rotation. I'm going to go back here to 4. Nothing on 4. I'm going to go back to 1. Nothing on 1. 2. We got to click on 2, and we've got the lock open again. So as advertised, we single pin picked every pin in this lock, and we were able to defeat it twice. Raking did not work, rocking didn't work, we didn't try bitch picking. One thing I wanted to show you was that the reason why I was using a lot of tension on this plug itself for the torque wrench is because there's a lot of give on this lock. I've never seen a lock like this before, but you could see it's turning, the plug turns a lot. Also, if I turn the shackle at the top, you could kind of see that the plug is rotating also. So this lock has a lot of give in it. Well, that's all I have for you this evening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Pin Stack Smashing. I'm your host and favorite YouTube lockpicker, Master Yale Quickset. Good night, friends. Ah, you have found me. Yet again, we're going to be having another bonus pick. This is a very special lock. This is from Extra Space Storage. This is one of my favorite locks to pick because all you have to do is pick the pins 1, 2, 3, 4. 45mm case, solid steel, hardened steel shackle, as if whimsically that's going to stop us from defeating the security of this lock. So some people say that I have a lot of locks. Some might say I have too many locks. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I purchase a lot of my locks from department stores such as Walmart, pin 1, Target, pin 2, Amazon, pin 3. Oh, I only had to do 3 that time. eBay. I get my locks from almost everywhere. I have a lot of locks, and I realized that the people at the stores, if someone were to see my history or something, would probably think that I was some sort of psycho creep that just locked people up in my basement. Now that's definitely not the case. Is it?
Ha 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 ha!